es una crisis migratoria al uso, que se trata más bien de un episodio a través del que se ha puesto en jaque nuestra integridad, la de Ceuta, la de España, la de Europa. Es cierto que a partir del día siguiente se inició el retorno voluntario de la gran mayoría de las personas que habían formado parte de la avalancha. Un retorno igualmente masivo, cerca de 75.000 personas. Un retorno que ha aliviado considerablemente el trauma sufrido, pero que en ningún caso permite afirmar que nuestra ciudad haya vuelto a la normalidad. Ceuta no ha vuelto a la normalidad porque todavía permanecen en ella entre 3.000 y 5.000 personas desde que entraron los fatídicos días 30 y 31 de julio. Porque los centros de acogida de migrantes, adultos y menores se encuentran en situación de colapso, con lo que la avalancha ha derivado en una emergencia humanitaria de enorme envergadura, a lo que se unen alteraciones del orden y un alto riesgo de inseguridad ciudadana, y porque el ánimo de los ceutíes está muy afectado. Nuestra población se siente triste, impotente, inquieta, temerosa y preocupada. Y tiene motivos, porque es inevitable preguntarse si esto no se producirá en otro momento, y ese será el definitivo para la caída al abismo, para dejar de ser lo que somos, España y Europa, y porque se ha puesto en evidencia ante los ojos del mundo que somos extraordinariamente vulnerables, que nuestra seguridad e integridad están en manos de un país tercero, Marruecos, que no reconoce nuestra soberanía. Con base en lo que acabo de exponer, considero absolutamente imprescindible adoptar por parte de las instancias competentes las medidas que sean necesarias para recuperar la antes referida normalidad, entre ellas las que, en forma de ejes prioritarios y de manera enunciativa y no exhaustiva, me permito señalar. La inmediata expulsión por la frontera del Tarajal de los marroquíes que han entrado de manera irregular en nuestra ciudad y que aún permanecen en la misma. La articulación de una respuesta estructural a la singular y crónica presión migratoria que sufre Ceuta por su condición de frontera terrestre de Europa en África. El blindaje de la seguridad de Ceuta y de nuestra frontera, la de todos, a través tanto de una mayor dotación de medios personales y materiales como de la realización de las obras de infraestructura que al efecto se consideren necesarias. La habilitación de los recursos necesarios en instalaciones y medios para resolver el acuciante problema del colapso de los centros de acogida de migrantes, adultos y menores. El refuerzo y ampliación de los efectivos en los cuerpos y fuerzas de seguridad del Estado. El respaldo explícito e inequívoco de las instituciones europeas, junto con la implicación y presencia activa de órganos de la misma dependientes, como son, entre otros, Frontex, Europol y la Agencia Europea de Asilo. Y finalmente la puesta en marcha de un plan que tenga por objeto paliar el impacto de la crisis en el tejido productivo local, recuperar la confianza en el futuro de la ciudad y evitar el parón del proyecto en curso sobre tránsito hacia un nuevo modelo económico centrado en la idea de más España y más Europa, verde, azul e inteligente. Para finalizar, reiterar nuestro agradecimiento, así como en nombre de todos los ceutíes, poner de manifiesto dos cosas. Una, nuestro profundo dolor por el drama irreparable que ha supuesto el centenar de víctimas mortales que la avalancha ha ocasionado. La otra, nuestra absoluta confianza en las instituciones europeas para afrontar este momento tan crudo y difícil. Servimos a una sociedad que ha forjado su carácter a base de coraje y valor para resistir y de capacidad para superar las dificultades. Estamos seguros de que lo volverá a hacer, aunque para ello, insisto, resulta imprescindible el apelado apoyo de las instancias europeas. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente de la ciudad autónoma de Ceuta, por su intervención. Y, por otra parte, quisiera también aprovechar esta ocasión para expresar nuestra solidaridad con toda la población de Ceuta, con sus autoridades y con todos los ceutíes que han visto tan duramente afectada su vida diaria en este episodio. And now I am glad first to welcome Commissioner Brunner. We are It's great to have you among us in this exchange of views. We do look forward to your remarks on your assessment of the situation and the steps to be taken in order to prevent situations as the ones we have seen in Ceuta over the last days. So, Commissioner Brunner, thanks for coming. Be welcome, and the floor is yours for up to 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and let me start by thanking you especially for organizing this video conference to discuss the situation. Thanks also, of course, to the Ceuta President. Welcome in this Libe committee. Well, it's not for me to welcome him, but good to see you at least on the screen. And let me maybe begin with what we have all jointly achieved in the last months and years, actually, and this is very real. And without it, nothing we discuss today about the way forward would actually be possible, because we have, since the 12th of June, the reformed common European asylum system in force, with screening the borders, accelerated procedures. In June, the European Parliament approved the new return regulation. We have the safe country of origin, which is in this respect, especially with what happened in Ceuta, very, very important. So our new rules are actually working, and we see that when we have a look at the numbers. The asylum applications are falling across the whole European Union by more than a quarter last year. Just to give you a couple of examples, in Germany, for instance, they are down by more than a third again this year. Sweden, for instance, registered 8,400 and something applications last year. That's the lowest in 40 years. Denmark registered 1,800 by the end of November. That's a historic low. So the illegal arrivals, they decrease, and also in the Mediterranean, they have fallen for 3 years now in a row. And in the first 6 months of this year, just over 49,000 people crossed illegally into our union across all our external borders. And this is actually roughly as many as arrived on the Greek islands alone in the single week of October 2015. So by every measure, Europe has not had this much control over irregular migration in a decade, actually, just to put to bring those numbers up again. And then, of course, came the incident in Ceuta. And of course, all these figures were overshadowed, I would say. 24 hours, tens of thousands of people, and the President was just referring to that, crossed in one town, matching actually the population of the city, which is incredible. What happened there? Nothing on this scale has happened in any EU external border in 20 years, not in any single day, of course. So here is the disturbing lesson. These dramatic images beat actually the best statistics, and all the numbers I've just given to you, the falling arrivals, the restoration of control, that counted for little last week actually in the eyes of public across Europe. And an event that lasts 3 days at one beach in one town shakes, of course, the politics of an entire continent, I would say. And what we have seen in Ceuta during the past few days was, I would say, a test of our resilience and of the security also of our external borders. And it showed that there are actors who have no regard for the safety or even the lives of innocent people. And at the same time, we cannot accept such a breach of integrity of our external borders and violation also of the security of the Union. And in that regard, the impact of criminal smuggling networks, both on people's lives and also on our security, of course, that is simply unacceptable. And I would therefore like to thank the authorities in Spain, but especially you, Mr. President, for restoring order, actually, and to work closely also with Morocco to ensure the swift returns. I also welcome the firm commitment of Spain to prevent any movements towards the mainland and therefore towards the European continent. So thanks to these efforts, I think altogether the integrity of the Schengen area was preserved, and the situation has been contained, and the vast majority, as you said, President, of those who arrived illegally have returned to Morocco. This is a success, I would say, and it shows that we have a robust system in place to safeguard Europe's security and sovereignty, and provide also the necessary reassurances to our citizens. But the fact that we have passed this test of our resilience does not mean that we cannot do better. Of course not. I will come to the lessons learned in a moment. But let me say a few words on the support to Spain. From the very first moment, we were, of course, ready to support Spain and assess their needs also. We were in contact from the very first day, me personally with Minister Gane Malaska, but also with other officials in Spain. And these assistance, this help, this support includes emergency financial assistance. That's one. In order to strengthen the protection of the external border in Ceuta, we also stand ready, of course, to provide all necessary to support to Spain in managing the situation of those who at the moment are still present in Ceuta, and also supporting returns and also continuing to prevent unlawful onward movements to the European Union. And in terms of support from the agencies, Frontex is on the ground in Ceuta and stands ready to do more. Of course, if Spain wants to have that, we are of course always ready to do more. And also other agencies, EU agencies like our asylum agency or Europol, they are also ready to assist Spain furthermore, if requested, of course. While additional support can also be mobilized, notably through the permanent migration support toolbox. One sentence on the relations with Morocco. We are, of course, also in contact with Morocco, especially Commissioner Ceuta, who is in charge of the Mediterranean and therefore on the relations with Morocco as well. And we're quite confident that our close partnership will continue delivering concrete results. And we are, as you know, negotiating a comprehensive partnership agreement at the moment. And of course, there, migration plays a very important role. Next point I wanted to raise is the Schengen issue, or the Schengen rules also, because this is also, of course, very, very important. And as I've already mentioned, thanks to the special rules of the Schengen Borders Code concerning Ceuta, the integrity of the Schengen area was fully upheld. Nobody can travel to mainland Spain or to the other member states. And as I said in the beginning, this situation caused, of course, considerable concerns from citizens across Europe, in all the member states, of course. So I do understand the concerns and the need also to respond maybe from some member states, but internal border checks should definitely be, I would say, the last resort measures, where necessary and where it's proportionate. I think we have a collective responsibility to protect the integrity and the security of the Schengen area, and our response need to remain coordinated on the one hand, proportionate, of course, also, and based on the realities on the ground. And that's where we need, of course, your assessment, President, which you just gave us today as well. So, to the lessons learned. What are the lessons learned? There will be, of course, a strategic discussion amongst the leaders in the next European Council also on the way forward. Ceuta actually showed us how quickly pressure at the EU's external border can build up, and it was a sudden threat to our common security and to our common unity also. So first of all, I think we must continue the very positive trend of reducing illegal migration to the European Union, and to do so, it is so important that the pact is fully implemented on both solidarity and also on responsibility aspects. So keeping the right balance, we all agreed upon, because a functioning asylum and return border procedure, this is the key aspect in situation as the one we just witnessed last week. And at the same time, we should also consider how to use the concept of safe third countries effectively. There's, I would say, one very important, well, more, but one very important reminder from Ceuta: to have control, we must cooperate with our neighbors, of course. But as long as control depends on the goodwill of one neighboring state, we remain, as you said, President, as well, we remain vulnerable. And we know that unless something changes, migrant smugglers will try it again. So this external dimension, cooperating with third countries, I think is key, because the goal there is to make sure such events never happen again, not in Ceuta, not in Lampedusa, not on Crete, not in the Evros, not on the eastern border as well of the European Union, and to achieve this while, of course, respecting also always our own law. And since the 12th of June, our legislation actually contains the safe third country concept that can achieve this, not just manage illegal migration, but to end it at the end of the day. And secondly, my second point is there are five key areas also mentioned in the letter of the President of the Commission President to Prime Minister Sanchez. There is a room for improvement, of course, that will help us deal with similar incidents better. First of all, we should further strengthen our external borders by stepping up Frontex vulnerability assessment, by providing further support to member states' capacities, including for possible physical barriers also where needed, by having Frontex supporting third countries at a larger scale. And I think the upcoming reform of Frontex, where the discussions also with you, of course, will start in autumn, will provide actually for opportunities like this. The second point of these five key areas, it's about further strengthen the work with partners. I mentioned that before, and step up our migration diplomacy by reinforcing comprehensive partnerships to stem the illegal migration, to secure also effective returns and create the right opportunities for people at home. The third point is to improve our early warning systems and our communication response, our pre-frontier intelligence also, and also our social media monitoring. Of course, also there is room for improvement, as we saw. The fourth point is very important in this respect. That's about dismantling the smuggling networks. And here I really count and call actually on the Parliament to adopt its position to the anti-smuggling directive proposed by the Commission almost 3 years ago. So this will be really important now, and we saw that in the incidents in Ceuta. The events in Ceuta are actually, I would say, a solid proof that we need a strong and effective tool and different tools to combat smuggling. And moreover, we should also further operationalize our counter-smuggling partnerships along the migratory routes and ensure that Europol anti-smuggling center becomes a true center of excellence, and implement the actions of the global alliance also to counter migrant smuggling. And the last of these 5 points, that's about returns, reinforce returns through the newly agreed return regulation, strengthen Frontex again there to reinforce its role as a key actor of the EU common system also for returns, and also enhance cooperation with third countries. Again, on readmission, this is important, including by using all the relevant tools and policies we have at our disposals. So to conclude, Mr. Chair, this week tested us, definitely, or last week, in speed on the one hand, in solidarity on the other hand, also in resilience to disinformation. But this week also showed then that when it mattered, the situation was brought back under control thanks to the swift actions of the region of Spain in cooperation with Morocco. And European solidarity, I think, is at the heart of the European Union. All member states can always count on the enduring support of the Commission and on the strength of our union to overcome this challenge. We will learn from this event, certainly, and we will close the gaps also, united in protecting our external borders and in responding to the concerns of our citizens and our partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your remarks. And then I would like to open up the round of interventions for political groups. There will be 2 minutes for your questions, and also there will be 2 minutes for our speakers to answer them. Please keep your interventions within the time allocated and be as specific as possible so our speakers also can answer your questions in the most specific way. And then we will be able to make room for the participation of as many members as possible in this session. So now I give the floor to the EPP coordinator, Mrs. Lena de Pont. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thanks a lot, Chair, and thanks to both Mr. President from Ceuta, but also, of course, to the Commissioner for being part here in the meeting. And let me probably start by clearly expressing our solidarity with President Vivas and, of course, the people of Ceuta, because they have been also under very troubling circumstances the past week. And I think that is very important also for us to show solidarity there. And I think in that sense, it's politically regrettably, actually, because it is a choice that the ministers from the Spanish government are not there. I think it is would also be helpful, because if everything went right, like they're proclaiming, then of course it would also be something that they could have voiced here, and I think it could have potentially also helped us in understanding the situation. But let me shoot some concrete questions in order to get a better picture of the situation. Probably starting first with you, Mr. President Vivas. Could you give us a bit of a hint on how is the situation concretely on the ground in terms of numbers, because there's a huge gap between the official numbers and numbers that are also mentioned, for example, from your side. Second, do we have enough support specifically looking at unaccompanied minors to return them as quickly as possible in order to kind of tracing down families and issue the return procedures? Are the rumors true that there have been jihadistic people that were previously expelled from the European Union in between those arriving? And since I think actually there have been a lot of warnings, Ceuta, Melilla are under pressure already for quite a while, so there have been warnings from local police unions, from the administration, but also from intelligence, as far as I understood. How long have you been asking for support? And what do we do with the new call for the 15th of August to have a new kind of peak in arrivals? And of course, lastly, specifically again to you, Mr. President, what can we do from European side in order to beef up support, and how can we support you better in your role? Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. de Pont. Presidente Vivas.
Solidaridad que ha manifestado la portavoz. En cuanto a las cifras, no puedo ser más concreto porque no se conocen. Yo creo que el hecho de que no conozcamos las cifras en estos momentos de las personas que permanecen en Ceuta pone de manifiesto la precariedad de medios con la que todavía se está actuando actuando para abordar la situación. Sería hora de conocer al menos que hubieran sido identificadas las personas que permanecen y tuviéramos un número exacto para iniciar los correspondientes expedientes de expulsión por la frontera del Tarajal. Apoyo suficiente en el tema de menores. Mire, ahora mismo la acogida de menores por parte de la ciudad autónoma de Ceuta sobrepasa en un 2.600% la acogida que la misma ley le establece como una situación crítica de acogida. En 2024 tuvimos un episodio de esta misma naturaleza, aunque de menor dimensión, y se puso de manifiesto que con la legislación en la mano y según las convenciones internacionales que también existen, el retorno de los menores al país de origen es prácticamente imposible porque, entre otras cuestiones, se requiere la aceptación expresa del menor. No tenemos ningún conocimiento en las autoridades locales de que entre las personas que permanecen en Ceuta en estos momentos haya yihadistas. No tenemos ningún conocimiento de eso. En cuanto a los avisos, desde el día 20, y habida cuenta que antes de la avalancha, en las semanas precedentes, se estaba produciendo un incremento continuo de las llegadas a Ceuta por vía marítima, que llegaron a culminar al día en unas entradas de 500, nosotros alertamos y avisamos a distintos ministerios, al Gobierno de la Nación, acerca de la situación tan preocupante que estábamos viviendo. Todavía no había venido la avalancha, no conocíamos la avalancha, no teníamos información, lo hubiéramos dicho, pero sí pusimos de manifiesto que se estaba intensificando de manera preocupante los flujos de llegada. Y el 15 de agosto es la prueba palmaria de que Ceuta vive angustiada, porque aparte de la angustia de aquellos 2 días en la que no sabíamos cuántos entraban, para cuánto tiempo entraban y para qué entraban, ahora mismo también, yo lo he puesto de manifiesto en mi primera intervención, no sabemos si esto se volverá a repetir, porque lo que ha quedado en evidencia es que nuestra frontera es absolutamente vulnerable.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente Vivas. And now I'll give the floor to S&D Group. According to my notes, it will be Mr. López Aguilar who will be intervening. Mr. López Aguilar, floor is yours for 2 minutes. Mr. López Aguilar, are you there?
Mr. López Aguilar, could you please press on the mic and camera button?
Well, if Mr. López Aguilar is not available right now, I will come back to him later. And now I give the floor to Mr. Jorge Buxade on behalf of Patriot. Mr. Buxade, are you there?
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, presidente, y gracias a los dos intervinientes. Sobre todo me voy a dirigir al señor Brunner. La última vez que le vi hablando de la regularización masiva de inmigrantes ilegales por el gobierno socialista de Sánchez, le dije que Sánchez era un peligro existencial para Europa. Lamento tener razón y lamento más su discurso complaciente con las posiciones políticas del gobierno de Sánchez. Miren, más de 80.000 personas lanzadas contra las ciudades españolas de Ceuta y Melilla en menos de 24 horas, coordinado desde las redes sociales, con la colaboración, porque lo hemos visto en los vídeos, en las redes sociales, nadie nos puede engañar en esto, de las autoridades marroquíes, y miles de cuentas en redes que difunden una retórica agresiva contra España, aprovechando esa criminal regularización masiva de Sánchez. No es un acto de inmigración ilegal, es un acto de guerra híbrida. Cuando sucedió en Bielorrusia, la Comisión no dudó en calificarlo como un acto de agresión. Esta vez lo que le ofrece la Comisión a Marruecos es dinero. No sé si su silencio viene porque se lo ha pedido el gobierno socialista traidor de Pedro Sánchez o porque el lobby marroquí tan infiltrado en Bruselas ha conseguido su objetivo, o por ambos a la vez. Pero si se sigue considerando esto como un caso de inmigración ilegal, volverá a suceder. Europa ha sido objeto de un acto de agresión desde un Estado extranjero y lo que nos dicen es que Marruecos ha colaborado activamente, sí, en no defender su frontera y permitir la llegada masiva. ¿O se creen ustedes que las mafias son capaces de movilizar a 80.000 personas de forma coordinada? El gobierno socialista les ha mentido, señor Brunner. Nosotros, los españoles, ya lo sabemos porque el gobierno miente todos los días. La duda es si ustedes lo saben y miran a otro lado o si, por el contrario, también quieren ser partícipes. El gobierno socialista no está en esta reunión, pero es que tampoco está al mando del gobierno en España. El presidente está de vacaciones en su palacete, perfectamente protegido y fijando una zona de exclusión marítima, esa zona de exclusión marítima que se ha negado durante años a la ciudad de Ceuta o a la ciudad de Melilla para protegerla. Creo que se acabaron ya las medias tintas con el señor Sánchez y la Comisión Europea, si quiere realmente cumplir sus funciones, debe llamar a las cosas como lo que son. El señor Sánchez, repito, es un peligro existencial para Europa. Y por lo tanto, la pregunta es, ¿en qué momento por parte de la Comisión se va a hacer un análisis correcto de esta cuestión para considerarlo de verdad un acto de guerra híbrida y, por tanto, poner en marcha todos los mecanismos diplomáticos en nombre de la Comisión para poner fin a las agresiones al espacio europeo?
Gracias, señor Buxadé. Commissioner Brunner.
Competence of the member state to do it. Did you hear me from the beginning? Sorry. You know, when it comes to regularization, I repeat myself, that's competence of the member state, and Spain decided to do this. Other member states have done so in the past as well. This is a competence of the member state. It's a bit of a different story in Spain, of course. Latin Americans mainly, and same language. I mean, I don't have to tell you. You know much better. What is not good, and that's what I always said, it's not a good signal for the rest of Europe. Of course not. That's what I always said right from the beginning. But as it is a member state's competence, it is a member state's competence. That's the way it is.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that now we can go back to Mr. López Aguilar. And Mr. López Aguilar, S&D Group, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Mr. López Aguilar, could you please press on the mic and camera button?
Of course I do. ¿Me escuchan?
We can hear you. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ok, lo he presionado desde el primer minuto. Empezaba por un saludo y toda la solidaridad de la ciudadanía de Ceuta representada en esta reunión por su presidente, señor Vivas. Se ha vivido una situación crítica. Más de 70.000 personas en 24 horas. Y la respuesta del gobierno ha sido eficaz e inmediata. Han acudido en la misma jornada crítica el ministro del Interior y el presidente del gobierno, después de haber consumido largas jornadas combatiendo los peores incendios que se recuerdan en la historia reciente de España, pero mostrando compromiso con Ceuta y movilizando toda la capacidad de la policía, la Guardia Civil y una movilización extraordinaria también de las Fuerzas Armadas, sobre todo para salvar vidas, porque lo que hay que lamentar es más de 100 víctimas en la mar, intentando llegar a nado desde Castillejos a través del Espigón hacia Ceuta. Y por tanto, esa tragedia debe ser depurada, porque hay que investigar las responsabilidades y no puede pasarse por alto. Pero para poder investigar y verificar exactamente lo que ha pasado y poner todos los medios para que no vuelva a pasar es imprescindible. No solamente que la Unión Europea, toda ella entera, se emplee a fondo en la interlocución bilateral con Marruecos exigiéndole su responsabilidad, sino también que muestre unidad en el cumplimiento de sus propias reglas. Hemos trabajado para poner en vigor un pacto de migraciones y asilo fundado en los principios de responsabilidad compartida y solidaridad vinculante. Y España ha mostrado solidaridad, incluso en escenarios distantes geográficamente en el conjunto de la Unión Europea, con los bálticos, con Polonia, que tiene frontera con Rusia en Kaliningrado, y con Bielorrusia, y con Finlandia, que tiene frontera con Rusia. Y por tanto España y, por supuesto, Ceuta tienen derecho a toda la solidaridad del conjunto de la Unión Europea, pero también a la unidad que no se ha mostrado en esta ocasión, habiendo disonancias y cacofonía en los mensajes que se han emitido desde determinadas cancillerías, pero una reunión extraordinaria del Consejo de Ministros de Interior de la Unión Europea, convocada a iniciativa del Gobierno de España hace apenas 48 horas, ha restablecido esencialmente esa unidad. Y por tanto, creo que lo imprescindible en cuanto a las lessons learned de la que hablaba el comisario Brunner es que el comisario Brunner asegure que va a haber unidad en la defensa de esa frontera exterior tan única de Ceuta, que no solamente es la frontera terrestre de la Unión Europea con el continente africano, sino del conjunto de la renta media de la Unión Europea con respecto de la renta africana, la más desigual del mundo. Va a haber unidad en la defensa de esa frontera exterior de la Unión Europea, en la movilización de toda la solidaridad con los fondos de migraciones y asilo y de solidaridad interior que son necesarios para asistir a las situaciones humanitarias planteadas, particularmente los menores no acompañados, que requieren una redistribución que está contemplada en la legislación española, en el conjunto del territorio español, de acuerdo con una regla de solidaridad que también se practica internamente en España. Por tanto,
vaya concluyendo, señor López Aguilar.
Unidad, comisario Brunner, unidad y solidaridad obligatoria en esa frontera exterior de la Unión Europea que es Ceuta.
Muchas gracias, señor López Aguilar. Commissioner Brunner.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, there is, of course, full solidarity, and there was full solidarity from the European Commission from the very first day, and took also part in the JHA Informal Council this week, and there was also full solidarity of all the member states, definitely, and the Commission showed that also with offered support to Spain from the very first day. The JHA Council, by the way, not to let a misunderstanding, was convened by the Irish presidency. This also shows the full solidarity with Spain. The Irish presidency, together with us, tried to get this informal JHA Council from the very first day, and that's what happened on Tuesday. Spain has been identified also when it comes to support, of course, as being under migratory pressure under the first annual solidarity cycle, and will receive solidarity, of course, also from the contributing member states next year. So there is full solidarity. Yes, in the media there were some discussions. I totally agree with you there, but I took part in the informal council, and I can just tell you from there, full solidarity, of course, as well. And there has to be, of course, an assessment from Spain also, which we are assessing in view of providing most appropriate assistance. And we coordinate that very closely with Spain when it comes to more funding also from home funds. So, as I said in the beginning, full solidarity with Spain there, of course.
Thank you, Commissioner. Presidente Vivas, ¿quiere añadir alguna observación? Bien, then we move to our next speaker, who is Mrs. Asita Kanko, representing ECR. Mrs. Kanko, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to say first that it's not only astonishing, it's also very regrettable that the Spanish Interior Minister, Grande Marlaska Gomez, did not make time to connect to this meeting to answer our questions. Because what happened in Ceuta was serious. Thousands of people crossed an EU external border illegally, and many lost their lives too. The population is shocked, and citizens across Europe are wondering who is in charge today. Are their leaders even still in charge? Even if many of the people went back on the same day, it still raises a lot of concern, loss of faith, and strong responses that are totally understandable. Also, I must say that the Spain of Sanchez expects loyalty from Europe, but too often fails to show loyalty and responsibility in return, whether on protecting our external borders, migration policy, or investment in our common defense even. So trust has to be built and earned, and the way that they're doing it now is not how it's going to be built. The minister's presence today would have been an important step in this regard. We want to understand how this crisis could happen and what concrete steps Spain is taking to make sure it doesn't occur again. We expect answers because Europe must act on the lessons of this crisis. That is why we need clear and humble answers to the fundamental questions remaining now about how the crisis happened and what must change. We need answers from Spain, from Spanish leaders. The Spanish government must stop creating pull factors and start being realistic about migration policy. And I would like to know what the Commission intends to do if Spain continues in the direction where it is now. We need answers from Morocco because we are not credible if Morocco can weaponize migration without any consequences. And finally, we need to understand what happened on social media, who is behind it, and how were we not resilient. Europe also needs to fully and swiftly implement the tougher parts of our migration rules. And security screening, border procedures, and quick returns are essential. I'm grateful, and I appreciate the fact that the Commission is here today and that the Libe Committee is holding this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kanko. I think, Mr. Brunner, that was a question addressed to you.
For the questions, actually. First of all, we cannot provide answers on behalf of the Spanish authorities, of course not. And as you said, that would have been a question to the Spanish authorities. But when it comes to what we have to make sure as a Commission, first of all, implementing the pact. That is key. And doing everything we can and support also all member states, also including Spain, of course, to be ready to fully implement everything with the border controls, of course. And we do everything, as I said in the beginning, to support Spain, but all other member states as well on that. Also, when it comes to the next Frontex mandate, Europol mandate discussions, I think there are some possibilities there, of course, as well. But now, for the first thing, it's all about implementing the pact. Morocco. On Morocco, yes, we are discussing, as I also said in the beginning, we're discussing this comprehensive partnership agreement. And there, of course, migration has to be on the table and is, of course, also on the table. And we need to use all the leverage we have as a European Union. That is visa policy on the first hand, but that's on a more general perspective, trade, development aid. So we really have to use all the leverage we have, and that's what we are also doing with Morocco, of course. On the social media monitoring, we saw that smugglers and human traffickers used that on social media. We saw that right from the beginning, of course, and the Commission, together with Frontex, with Europol, with our asylum agency, and also with member states, of course, together. We need them for that. Will fully mobilize also the existing EU framework to prevent and also to disrupt the online facilitation of migrant smuggling. This is, I think, really key, and I call again on the Parliament also to, as I said in the beginning, on the points and the possibilities we still have and where we need a parliamentary decision. I think this all will rely in particularly on the Digimax action under the MPACT. That is one. When it comes to concrete actions by Europol. I think strengthening the cooperation with online service providers through the EU Internet Forum is key. There we have all the platforms with the member states on the same table. Also enforcing the Digital Services Act, also deepening our cooperation with the companies, with the technology companies, and online platforms to detect on the one hand, but also to remove on the other hand the smuggling-related content. Of course, always in full compliance with fundamental rights and data protection rules. And then we have to support the member states with with training in online investigation and digital evidence also done by Europol. So I think the new Europol mandate, which we are discussing now, and also the Frontex mandate will definitely help.
Thank you, Commissioner. Señor Presidente Vivas, ¿alguna observación suplementaria? Señor Presidente Vivas, ¿nos escucha?
Sí.
No, le preguntaba si quería hacer alguna observación complementaria en la intervención del señor Brunner y a la intervención previa de la señora Kanko.
Sí, yo lo que no quisiera es que se desorientara un poco, se desenfocara la calificación de lo que en Ceuta ha ocurrido. No digo que no tenga una componente de crisis migratoria, pero que se superpone a esa componente de crisis migratoria el elemento determinante de que se ha tratado de un ataque inequívoco a la integridad territorial de Ceuta, de España y de Europa a través de una avalancha de 80.000 personas, el equivalente a toda la población de Ceuta, en un día. Para hacernos una idea, y si hablamos de nuestro país, de España, es como si en España en un día entraran 50 millones de personas. Esto es lo que ha ocurrido en Ceuta, sin saber además cuándo iba a terminar. Quiero insistir en que Ceuta no ha vuelto a la normalidad y que se requiere una acción enérgica, decidida e inmediata por parte del Estado, y necesitamos la solidaridad, el respaldo por parte de la Unión Europea, que es una garantía de estabilidad y de seguridad para Ceuta.
Muchas gracias, señor Presidente Vivas. Now I give the floor to the representative of the Renew Group, Mrs. Fabian Keller. Mrs. Keller, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. President, Mayor of Ceuta. What has happened in Ceuta is unprecedented. The sudden arrival of tens of thousands of people at one of our external borders has placed Spain under considerable pressure. I would therefore like to first express our solidarity with Spain, with the Spanish authorities, and with you, Mr. Mayor President Vivas. You have dealt with an extremely difficult situation on the ground, and I want to have thoughts for those who have lost their lives and thoughts to their loved ones. Behind the figures, the political debates, we must never forget the human cost of such a situation. Just a week ago, disinformation and manipulative narratives were widely circulated and exploited by the far right. However, the facts quickly disproved these claims. There was no impact on the Schengen area. Within a few days, a very large number of people were able to return to Morocco, and the situation was very quickly brought under control. Renew Europe defends Schengen, supports Frontex, and advocates strong protection of our external borders. In the face of crisis, our response must be more Europe and more solidarity. That brings me, Mr. Commissioner, to my first question. What are the lessons learned from that situation in Ceuta? You talked about the 5 points that were in the letter of Ursula von der Leyen. But how can we ensure that in the future, European solidarity will be applied in the same way, regardless of which member state finds itself under pressure? We recall that when Italy was under pressure in Lampedusa in 1924, we rightly asserted that migration was a political challenge, and we put in place European solidarity. My second question to the two persons present: the situation must also lead us to ask ourselves what has been happening on the other side of the border. How can such an exodus on such a large scale have been possible? More broadly, how can we ensure that our dependence on third country in managing migration does not leave the European Union vulnerable? You just talked about the digital issue, Mr. Commissioner. What about the firm implementation of DSA and the important articles asking the platforms to take control of that, of some messages pushing for movements.
You should be concluding, Mrs. Keller.
So
you should be concluding.
Yes, yeah. I will. How can we prevent migration flows from being exploited, as was the case in the past with Belarus, here with this migration in Ceuta, using digital networks and disinformation? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Keller. Mr. Brunner, the floor is yours for answering. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, to the DSA, because you mentioned that, Madam Keller, we are fully committed, of course, to implementing the Digital Service Act. The Digital Service Act gives us many different tools, of course, and we will continue to exchange with digital companies also in the context of the EU Internet Forum. As I said before, the next meeting will be in September already, where we focus, of course, obviously on this. When it comes to solidarity, because you mentioned that in the beginning, the Commission will always stand with our member states in moments of need, and there is no difference between the member states. We, of course, treat everyone the same, also obviously, and as I said in the beginning, there was full support, full solidarity towards Spain from the very, very first minute, actually, things occurred. So that's the same for anyone. And when it comes to third countries, yes, I also mentioned that before. It's about our agreements, about using our leverage and putting migration on the table when it comes to these comprehensive partnership agreements and to all discussions. We're having discussions along the route, actually, along all routes, not just the Mediterranean route, but also when it comes to the eastern border, because you mentioned them as well. When it comes to how to avoid dependency on third countries, exactly that makes the difference, to have an assertive migration diplomacy and strong partnerships with third countries. And so that's why we now have to, and that's also in our strategy, of course, as you know, in our 5-year strategy, that we have to focus on migration diplomacy also. And then, as a last point, I mentioned that briefly, but I think this is really something which has to be put more focus on. That's our safe third country concept. Because now everyone talks about returns and return hubs, but I think we should be a bit earlier on the stage and also talk about the safe third country concept, how to apply this, and to have asylum procedures already outside the European Union, together with the whole of route approach, where we go forward as well. So migration diplomacy is key with third countries, and on DSA and on digital smuggling altogether. The next step is our EU Internet Forum in September, and fully committed, of course, to the Digital Service Act.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brunner. Mr. Vivas, would you like to further comment on that? ¿Algún comentario adicional?
Hacer una breve reflexión, y es que Ceuta, desde nuestra perspectiva de frontera terrestre de Europa en África, somos muy partidarios, estamos muy comprometidos con que se respete el espacio Schengen. Pero creemos que para que esto se haga de manera eficaz, siendo frontera terrestre como somos, se tienen que cumplir con 2 requisitos que me parecen fundamentales. Uno, que tengamos una frontera segura. Esto es fundamental. Y el segundo requisito es que los retornos en frontera sean ágiles. Y ninguna de las cosas han funcionado históricamente, y mucho menos con motivo de este episodio vivido en este pasado mes de julio. Además, el tener una frontera segura y el que los retornos en frontera sean ágiles, pues facilita otra cosa muy importante: disuade el que nadie intente jugarse la vida tratando de llegar a nado o por cualquier otro procedimiento de riesgo. Por tanto, también tiene mucho que ver con ese capítulo que aquí se ha señalado y que yo comparto plenamente, del drama humano, de irreparable drama humano de quienes pierden la vida. Cuanto más seguras sean las fronteras terrestres, cuanto más ágiles sean los retornos en frontera, menos drama, menos personas intentarán jugarse la vida.
Gracias, Presidente Vivas. Now we move to the group of the Greens. Mrs. Tineke Strike. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks a lot to Commissioner Brunner and to the President of City of Ceuta. What has happened has shocked everyone, I think, and it's very clear that everyone is losing from such a tragedy, and the main victims, of course, are those who have lost their lives, and my condolences are therefore also going to the families of these people. But I would also say that the implementation of the pact would have not prevented these kinds of sudden arrivals of 60,000 people ending up in a tragedy. And Spain is not the only one. We have seen it earlier with Greece, with Italy. Our member states at the external borders are and remain very vulnerable to also policies from their neighboring countries. So it's no point in attacking the Spanish authorities for anything. I think the only thing that counts now is solidarity and looking at the causes. And in that sense, I would really also like to ask Mr. Jesús Vivas Lara about, because you are very closely connected, of course, to the Moroccan authorities, what would you want from the EU to improve its cooperation with the Moroccan authorities? And also for Mr. Brunner, you say we should come up with a more comprehensive partnership. That sounds good, but as long as we are so much obsessed with stemming migration, we make ourselves very vulnerable towards our neighboring countries. And how then do we prevent that if we are not willing to take responsibility ourselves? In that sense, I think, now talking about, say, third country concepts or whatever, any attempt to try to outsource our responsibility will only lead to a further instrumentalization of migrants into the EU. So I would like to hear some reflection from your side. Two other questions. You say that Schengen was never under threat, which I agree with. What are you going to make clear to Italy and other countries who are using this event to reintroduce border control that this is unlawful? Are you going to take a stance on that? And furthermore, the Supreme Court of Spain had also made clear that there should be also proper procedures. We need a due procedure. We cannot have summary returns because these are unlawful, and there should always be a possibility to ask for asylum if there's any reason for that. Do you admit that summary returns or pushbacks are still not lawful, even if you're talking with such a mass scale?
Thank you.
And how are you going to deal with that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Strick. Presidente Vivas, empezamos por usted.
Sí, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias por las muestras de solidaridad que ha manifestado la portavoz. Y lo que quiero decir es que nosotros no tenemos ningún contacto con las autoridades marroquíes, no porque nosotros no queramos, sino porque no quiere Marruecos. Marruecos, como he dicho antes, no reconoce la soberanía de nuestra ciudad y, por tanto, la comunicación con dichas autoridades por parte del gobierno local es imposible. ¿Qué esperamos nosotros en este ámbito de la Unión Europea? Hombre, nosotros esperamos en este ámbito un respaldo explícito por parte del Parlamento Europeo a Ceuta, a la agresión sufrida por Ceuta, y una advertencia a Marruecos de que estas cosas no se pueden producir, que es una falta de respeto a la integridad territorial, no solamente de Ceuta, no solamente de España, sino también de Europa. Y lo que también creemos que Europa puede hacer en colaboración o apoyando a las autoridades españolas es garantizar, blindar la seguridad de la frontera para que no ocurra lo que ahora ocurre, y es que la seguridad de la frontera está en manos de Marruecos. Esto no debería de volver a pasar. Esto es un factor de intranquilidad, de inquietud para el conjunto de la población de Ceuta, y creo que, habida cuenta el impacto que tiene desde el punto de vista migratorio en el conjunto de Europa, tiene que ser también un motivo de preocupación para toda Europa.
Gracias, presidente Vivas. Commissioner Brunner.
It's me? Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't get the... yeah, first of all, thanks very much. And maybe on these kind of topics, first of all, when it comes to our cooperation or all the our migration diplomacy and the comprehensive partnerships, our cooperation with Morocco is exactly comprehensive, and that goes, therefore, quite beyond migration. And we are not obsessed just by migration, not at all. But that's the sense of a partnership agreement. Comprehensive actually precisely means covering the whole range of cooperation with our partners, but also migration, of course. But we're not obsessed by anything. Migration is a key interest, of course, for all EU member states, as we just not only saw in the last week or two, but all together, and that's why we put it on the table. It's always, and I said that from the very beginning. It's always about fundamental rights as well, and our rules must, of course, always be respected. I've said this actually from the very first day. When it comes to Italy and others, we noted, of course, the initial reactions of member states, prompted by the emergency also in Ceuta, and as I also said in the beginning, there are, of course, concerns in the member states, which is totally understandable, because it's about it's about the concerns of the citizens, of course, as well, and governments were of course faced with considerable uncertainty and sought to reassure their citizens also that and in the Schengen Border Code there are some possibilities for these internal border controls if the security of a member state is under pressure. So member states altogether share, of course, a collective responsibility to I would say to protect the integrity and the security of the Schengen area. Their responses always should, and I always state that, should be proportionate. They should be coordinated, of course, as well, and based always on the realities on the ground. When it comes to the Supreme Court, of course, proper procedures, definitely, and that's why the implementation of the pact is so important. So I do see a link, of course, to the pact as well. Now you can say, and you probably are right, things can always happen also when the pact is fully implemented, but the procedures and they have to be held up, and that's also a part of the court ruling. Did the court ruling help us in this situation? No, of course not. Of course, the court ruling sort of fueled the whole situation again. That's what we heard and saw also on social media. The reactions that Spain is open now for everyone, which was fueled by social media comments from the smugglers and human traffickers. So altogether, it didn't help. Coming back to Morocco, just the last sentence. Morocco, and that's where the pact comes in again. Morocco is on the safe country of origin list. So it's much easier, of course, because it's a safe country, to return people to Morocco. And that's where the pact, again, comes into play. And that's why the pact and the full implementation is so important.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the group of the left. Señora Galán, tiene usted la palabra por 2 minutos.
Muchísimas gracias, presidente, comisario, pero especialmente quiero saludar al señor Vivas y mostrar toda la solidaridad con la ciudadanía de Ceuta y con todas las víctimas, que son principalmente donde deberíamos estar poniendo el foco. Quiero empezar por decir que esta reunión ha empezado francamente mal. En vez de estar debatiendo cómo evitar que vuelvan a morir personas en nuestras fronteras, se ha intentado convertir una tragedia humanitaria en un ataque político contra el gobierno progresista de España, una vez más, poner el foco en el drama humano. Porque mientras estamos aquí debatiendo, no olvidemos que al menos hay 142 personas que han perdido la vida en nuestras fronteras. 142 fallecidos no es solo una cifra insoportable, son historias de vida, familias rotas y mucho dolor. Y sin embargo, la respuesta de la mayoría de los gobiernos europeos ha sido lamentable y vergonzosa, incapaces de estar a la altura del momento político que se requería. Lo ocurrido en Ceuta está claro, y ya lo ha dicho el presidente Vivas, no es únicamente una crisis migratoria. Y reducirlo a esto es una estrategia más intencionada para ocultar las causas profundas de esta tragedia. Lo que hemos visto tiene diferentes capas. Por un lado, una emergencia humanitaria en la que en estos momentos están trabajando la ciudad de Ceuta, las ONG, los profesionales de los servicios públicos, las fuerzas y cuerpos de seguridad del Estado y las autoridades, a quienes desde aquí tenemos que agradecer todo el esfuerzo que se está haciendo. Y sobre todo, además, quiero aprovechar para decir que estamos muy orgullosos del ejemplo que han demostrado los vecinos y vecinas de Ceuta, que han impedido que agitadores y las derechas ultras conviertan sus calles en un plató de odio y les han echado allí. No sé si a muchos de ustedes les ha llegado esas imágenes que realmente nos hace sentirnos muy orgullosos de los ceutís y las ceutís. En segundo lugar, lo ocurrido en Ceuta es la muestra, señor Brunner, del fracaso del modelo migratorio europeo y de sus necropolíticas basadas en la externalización de fronteras, en acuerdos de terceros países que no respetan los derechos humanos, como es el caso de Marruecos, y en esa lista de países seguros que claramente no son seguros. Por tanto, la respuesta no puede ser más bunkerización de Europa, como ha planteado usted, comisario, que, por cierto, no ha hecho ni una sola propuesta de vías legales y seguras en toda su intervención, ni de cómo se va a garantizar que se cumpla el acceso al derecho a asilo, porque todavía hay muchos perfiles susceptibles de recibir protección internacional en las calles de Ceuta. Yo estoy en conexión directa cada día, y por la mañana y por la tarde, con las ONGs que están trabajando a pie de cañón y están atendiendo a sudaneses, a gazatíes, a yemeníes y a subsaharianos que están huyendo de conflictos y de vulneración de derechos humanos. Por tanto, esas devoluciones express, por favor, que respeten los derechos humanos. Pero fundamentalmente es una crisis con una evidente dimensión política, donde Marruecos, de la mano de Trump y Netanyahu, no nos olvidemos, con los aplausos de toda la internacional del odio, han vulnerado las fronteras exteriores de la Unión Europea.
Señora Galán, debe ir concluyendo. Señora Galán, debe ir concluyendo.
Perfecto. Lo que quiero pedir aquí es que se revise el papel que ha desempeñado Marruecos y que se haga un análisis objetivo de qué ha sucedido. Por eso quiero plantear aquí varias preguntas. Tras la tragedia de Ceuta, ¿va la Comisión a revisar la estrategia europea de externalización de los acuerdos con terceros países, que está demostrado que es un fracaso? En cuanto al papel de Marruecos, ¿van a solicitar una investigación independiente sobre las circunstancias que han dado lugar a esa tragedia y a reconsiderar esos acuerdos de cooperación que no sirven para nada y que vulneran nuestra soberanía?
Señora Galán, sea específica en sus preguntas, por favor.
Soy muy específica, presidente. Y al señor Vivas, ¿cree usted que toca replantearse el acuerdo con Marruecos? Y le han confirmado las comunidades autónomas españolas si les van a apoyar en la acogida de menores. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, señora Galán. Commissioner Brunner. Commissioner Brunner.
Okay, yeah, thank you. It's always a bit of a it's a bit later. Yeah, thanks very much. Paul, a lot of questions by the honourable member of Parliament Galan. And a lot we discussed, of course, already in the past, because you mentioned you didn't talk about legal pathways, of course, because we can't talk about everything now, but very happy to do that, of course. We always did that in the past as well. But one thing to make clear, and there I totally disagree with you, because it didn't start with an attack, at least not from my side, attack on Spain. It started all with solidarity with Spain, and I stressed that right from the beginning. Maybe you weren't there, but I did that from the very beginning. And the second thing is whole of route approach. That's why we're discussing the whole of route approach also always, because yes, of course, it's about supporting those countries on the way, on the route. We're looking, for instance, at the moment on the route from in the eastern part, Pakistan, Bangladesh, to the Gulf countries, then via Egypt to Libya. That's why we're doing this, actually. And we're doing this also to save lives. We must save lives by stopping smugglers, putting those lives at risk without pity, without scruples, to earn a profit. And these are criminals. That's quite simple, actually. And that's why we want to do that. And that's why I asked the Parliament also, now I get a bit emotional, to adopt its position on the anti-smuggling directive. This is really key. We proposed that 3 years ago, and we need these things. So please go forward there. And then you said it has failed. The policy has failed and the pact has... No, it hasn't failed. It's the other way around. The numbers of illegal arrivals decreased by 55% in the last 2 years. We had some routes where the decrease was 90%. Alone in this year, in the first 6 months of this year, another 40% decrease of illegal arrivals. And that gives us space to discuss legal pathways on the one hand, but also protection and saving lives. It's about that. And that's why I totally disagree with you on that, not on everything usually, but we don't have to agree on everything, of course. So it hasn't failed, it's the other way around. The numbers are actually proving that. And that gives us space then for legal pathways to the European Union, which we always also discussed in the Parliament, of course, as well. And the list of safe countries of origin, this is not entirely done by us alone. It's done in cooperation with international organizations, with UNHCR, with IOM. It's not our decision alone. We, of course, rely also on the experts on the ground. So will there be an objective analysis? That was the last part of your question. Yes, of course. And the investigations, as I always said right at the beginning, are done by Spain now. And we, of course, look into that if there are any new outcomes on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Presidente Vivas.
Sí, yo quiero en primer lugar a la portavoz agradecerle el que haya puesto de relieve el comportamiento solidario y humanitario de la sociedad ceutí. Yo lo decía antes, es una solidaridad que se traduce o que es consecuencia, de una madurez adquirida a través de largos años, décadas de sobresaltos por el hecho de ser la frontera terrestre de Europa en África. Muchas gracias por ese reconocimiento. Y en cuanto a las otras dos preguntas sobre Marruecos, yo he dicho recientemente, y hoy lo reitero, que visto lo visto, Marruecos no es un país fiable de cara a que la frontera exterior, la única frontera terrestre de Europa en África, esté puesta en manos de Marruecos, que necesitamos que esa autoridad esté ejercida por Europa y por España y por Europa. Y en el ámbito de los menores migrantes no acompañados, vamos a aplicar la ley sin ningún tipo de duda. Y el interés superior del menor estará por encima de cualquier otro, porque eso es lo que marca la ley.
Gracias, Presidente Vivas. Now, Mrs. Khan, ESN. Mrs. Khan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Ja, okay.
Ja, also erstmal vielen Dank, Herr Bürgermeister Vivas, dass Sie heute hier dabei sind. Und ich möchte auch zu Beginn erstmal Ihnen und vor allem den Einwohnern mein Mitgefühl aussprechen. Denn das, was in den letzten Tagen in Ihrer Stadt passiert ist und was die Einwohner auch erleben mussten, das ist mehr als erschütternd. Und ja, 72.000 Menschen sind innerhalb kürzester Zeit illegal nach Ceuta gelangt. Und diese Zahl muss man sich erst einmal vor Augen führen. Und Sie haben das zu Recht gesagt, es entspricht 86% der Gesamtbevölkerung Ihrer Stadt, also von Ceuta. Und auf dem Höhepunkt der Krise hat sich sozusagen die ganze Stadt verdoppelt. Und mir ist es auch nochmal wichtig, hier zu erwähnen, wie reagierte auch Pedro Sánchez. Also meiner Meinung nach übernimmt er keine Verantwortung, das muss auch hier nochmal gesagt werden. Er stellt sich stattdessen selbst auch als Opfer dar, weil 22 Regierungsstaaten seine Migrationspolitik kritisieren. Aber er ist letztendlich auch nicht das Opfer. Die Menschen in Ceuta sind die Opfer und auch die übrigen europäischen Staaten werden letztendlich den Preis für diese egoistische Migrationspolitik auch zahlen. Und deswegen stimme ich Ihnen, Herrn Brunner, zu. Volle Solidarität mit Spanien, allerdings mit der spanischen Bevölkerung und nicht mit dieser Regierung. Denn diese Regierung selbst hat falsche Anreize gesetzt, ob es jetzt das Urteil des obersten Gerichtshofes ist oder mit dieser Anreizpolitik mittlerweile sind es fast 1 Million illegale Migranten zu legalisieren. Und der Punkt ist vor allem hier, dass auch letztendlich die Minister heute nicht hier sind, ist ein klares Signal meiner Meinung nach Richtung EU. Und deswegen meine erste Frage bezieht sich einmal an Sie, Herr Kommissar Brunner. Herr Bürgermeister Vivas hat das gerade selbst gesagt. Marokko ist, was den Grenzschutz angeht, kein souveräner Partner. Und wir wissen, dass Marokko in den letzten Jahren auch von der Europäischen Union mehrere 100 Millionen Euro für Grenzschutz und Migrationsmanagement erhalten hat. Jetzt ist die Frage, wie wird die Kommission mit Marokko umgehen? Wird es Sanktionen geben, also im Bereich von Handel oder EU-Gelder, damit man klar auch Marokko zeigt? Und die EU möchte sich ja mittlerweile auch immer stärker präsentieren, dass man es nicht duldet, dass man Migration als Waffe nutzt. Also das ist die eine Frage. Die zweite Frage bezieht sich an Sie, Herr Bürgermeister Vivas. Sie sind schon eingegangen auf die Frage der Kollegin Dupont, was die Dschihadisten angeht. Das hat sich jetzt erstmal geklärt. Aber meine Frage ist auch nochmal, da geht es in Richtung Madrid, also an die spanische Regierung. Sie haben selbst gesagt, dass Sie vor diesem...
You must conclude, Mrs. Khan. You must
conclude. I will continue the last question. Meine letzte Frage an Sie bezieht sich, Sie haben selbst Madrid gewarnt und nach mehr Personal und Ressourcen gefordert. Fühlen Sie sich und auch Ihre Stadt letztendlich auch von der Regierung in Stich gelassen? Und meinen Sie, es wäre anders ausgegangen, wenn Sie diese Ressourcen und die Personalien erhalten hätten? Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Mrs. Khan. Commissioner Brunner.
Yeah, thank you very much. The one question on me, totally right. We have, what do we do in our negotiations with the third countries, and in this case Morocco, of course, when it comes to the comprehensive partnership agreement, and that's exactly what we try to do, to put our leverage. To use our leverage we have and to put migration on the table when it comes to in a very clear and strong way when it comes to negotiations for these partnerships. We have a lot of leverage, as I said, trade, everything, and that has to be balanced, of course, with migration as well. We will speak to the Moroccans, of course. Commissioner Ceuta does that every week as partners and also friends, putting all relevant topics, of course, on the table. I think that what our EU support towards Morocco